Praise God, church. I greet you today in the name of the one who strengthens us, the one who never abandons us, the one who shapes us even when we don't understand the process. Let me ask you something. How many times have you started a dream with faith only to give up when it got hard? How many times have you felt God moving only to step back when life became uncomfortable? Today, we are diving into a message that will change the way you live, the way you fight, and the way you believe. Today's message is about something that is simple but powerful. Stick with God. I'm not here to give you words that feel good for a moment. I'm here to give you truths that transform your life from the inside out. And I want you to hear me clearly. If you stay with me until the very end of this video, you will understand why your breakthrough doesn't depend on talent, connections, or opportunities, but on your faithfulness, your courage, and your consistency to stick with God, no matter what life throws at you. So I need you to do something. Don't scroll away. Don't skip a single moment. Pay attention to every word, because what you are about to hear is life-altering. By the end, your struggles will look different. Your faith will feel stronger, and you will never see your journey the same way again. Faith is proven by consistency, not comfort, because faith was never designed to function in ease, but to operate under pressure. And the mistake many believers make is they judge God by how they feel instead of how faithful He is. So when life becomes uncomfortable, they assume God has left, not realizing discomfort is often the evidence that growth is taking place, because anything that matures must be stretched, tested, and exercised. And if your faith only works when conditions are favorable, then it is not faith, it is convenience. Real faith shows up when prayer feels heavy, when obedience costs you popularity, when righteousness delays results, when doing the right thing produces temporary loss. Consistency is the discipline of staying aligned when emotions fluctuate, when results are slow, when applause is absent, because comfort never builds character, but consistency produces credibility. And God does not trust greatness to people who only show up when it feels good. He looks for those who will remain when it is boring, painful, repetitive, unseen, because destiny is not unlocked by moments of inspiration, but by habits of obedience practiced daily under pressure. And many people quit too early because they misinterpret discomfort as disapproval, when in fact it is often divine confirmation that you are being prepared for something heavier than what you currently carry. God uses pressure to shape purpose, because purpose is never produced in comfort zones, but forged in environments that demand endurance. And many people pray for elevation while resisting the very process that qualifies them for it, not understanding that pressure is not punishment but preparation, because anything God intends to use publicly, He develops privately, and pressure exposes weaknesses, realigns priorities, and removes dependence on self. Because when pressure increases, what is inside you is revealed, and God allows pressure not to break you, but to show you what must be strengthened, corrected, or removed, because purpose that has never been tested cannot be trusted, and calling that has never been pressured will collapse under responsibility. So God permits resistance to build capacity, delay to build discipline, and hardship to build humility, because pressure creates maturity, and maturity is required for authority, and those who escape pressure remain shallow, while those who endure it develop depth. And God would rather slow you down than release you prematurely, because premature success destroys more destinies than delayed fulfillment. And when you understand this, you stop asking God to remove pressure and start asking Him to reveal what the pressure is producing in you. Commitment starts faith, consistency finishes it, because many people are excited by beginnings but intimidated by endurance. And they celebrate decision without respecting devotion, not realizing that faith is not validated by what you start, but by what you sustain. Because Commitment is a moment, while consistency is a lifestyle. And God is not impressed by how loudly you declare belief, but by how faithfully you practice obedience over time. Because faith that only appears during inspiration disappears during inconvenience. And this is why many people experience spiritual cycles instead of spiritual growth, always restarting but never completing, because consistency demands discipline, structure, and routine. And without routine, revelation fades into emotion, and vision dissolves into frustration. And God designed progress to respond to repetition, not excitement, because what you do daily becomes what you are eventually trusted with, and those who abandon consistency blame God for unfinished outcomes, when the real issue is abandonment of process, because destiny is not built in one encounter, but in repeated obedience over time. And those who remain faithful in the unseen stages are the ones qualified to handle visible responsibility. God-given desire is evidence of destiny because God never ignites a righteous hunger without already authorizing its fulfillment. And many people mistake desire for temptation, when in reality, it is often a signal of assignment, because desire is not the problem, ignorance of purpose is. And when God places a persistent pull in your spirit, it is not to torture you, but to inform you, because heaven does not advertise what it cannot deliver. And the frustration you feel is not because the vision is wrong, but because the timing is not yet aligned. And people abort destiny when they try to satisfy divine desire through human shortcuts, not realizing that purpose requires process, and desire without understanding becomes impatience, while desire with discipline becomes direction. And God uses desire as a compass, not a calendar, to point you toward what belongs to you. And when you understand this, you stop envying others and start stewarding your preparation, because the presence of desire means provision already exists in seed form, waiting for obedience, alignment, and maturity to bring it into manifestation. Discipline is the bridge between vision and fulfillment, because vision without structure remains imagination, and intention without order produces frustration. And many people claim to be called but refuse to be controlled, not realizing that discipline is not restriction but alignment, because discipline teaches your body to submit to purpose and your emotions to obey direction. And anything that lacks discipline eventually loses focus, power, and credibility. Because God does not bless chaos, He blesses order, and order is sustained by discipline, which is the willingness to do what is necessary even when it is uncomfortable, unseen, and unrewarded. Because fulfillment is never accidental. It is the product of repeated decisions governed by discipline. And this is why talent alone is never enough, because talent without discipline creates arrogance, while discipline without talent still produces growth. And God entrusts increase to those who can manage routine, timing, and restraint, because discipline protects vision from distraction, guards purpose from compromise, and keeps destiny moving forward when motivation fades. And those who reject discipline delay fulfillment, not because God is unwilling, but because they are unprepared to steward what they desire. Failure is part of growth. Quitting is not because failure is a classroom, while quitting is a conclusion. And many people confuse mistakes with disqualification, not realizing that failure is often proof that you attempted something beyond your current capacity, because growth demands resistance, and resistance produces failure before mastery. And God never condemns sincere effort, but He cannot advance abandonment, because every failure carries instruction, correction, and refinement. And when you quit, you cancel the lesson and forfeit the progress, because success is not the absence of failure, but the refusal to stop learning, adjusting, and moving forward. And those who fear failure limit their exposure to purpose, while those who endure it expand their capacity. Because God builds resilience before He releases responsibility. And responsibility without resilience collapses under pressure. And those who keep moving despite failure eventually develop wisdom, stability, and authority. Falling forward requires faith and courage because fear always pulls you backward into safety, while faith pushes you ahead into uncertainty. And many people fall but never move because they choose comfort over calling, not realizing that falling forward means learning, adjusting, and advancing instead of retreating, because progress is not determined by how many times you fall, but by the direction you choose after the fall, and faith refuses to retreat into excuses, shame, or regret, because courage is not the absence of fear, but obedience in the presence of fear. And God never promises comfort, but He guarantees growth to those who keep moving, because backward movement preserves ego, while forward movement develops character, and those who fall forward gain wisdom, momentum, and clarity, while those who fall backward remain stuck rehearsing yesterday instead of preparing for tomorrow. Purpose is measured by impact, not possessions, because accumulation without contribution is empty, and success without significance is failure in disguise. And many people chase things thinking they are chasing fulfillment, not realizing that fulfillment comes from service, because life was designed to be poured out, not stored up, and whatever you refuse to use will eventually lose value, because gifts are validated by usefulness, and resources are justified by distribution, and God never measures a life by what it gathered but by what it released, because possession ends at death, but impact continues beyond it. And those who understand purpose focus less on ownership and more on stewardship, knowing that everything entrusted to them is meant to benefit others through intentional and responsible use. Putting God first is a daily system, not a slogan, because faith that is only spoken but not practiced becomes empty words. And many people claim devotion while their lives prove otherwise, not realizing that God honors consistency over convenience, because priority determines position, and what you place first shapes everything else in your life. And obedience cannot be occasional. It must be habitual, because when God is first in your decisions, your time, your resources, and your relationships, everything else aligns under His order, and those who practice this daily system experience protection, guidance, and provision, while those who neglect it encounter confusion, delay, and unnecessary struggle, because God's favor flows where alignment is maintained. Sticking with God guarantees completion of destiny, because many people start their journey full of excitement but abandon it when challenges appear, not realizing that perseverance is the key that unlocks divine fulfillment, because God honors endurance more than enthusiasm, and those who remain steadfast under pressure are the ones entrusted with increase, because destiny is not given to the impulsive or the impatient, but to the faithful, and consistency in obedience produces results that sudden effort cannot, because God's plan requires persistence. And those who stick with Him experience breakthroughs that impatience and doubt would have prevented. And faithfulness secures what vision alone cannot achieve. Church, let me remind you of what we have learned today. Faith is proven by consistency, not comfort. God uses pressure to shape your purpose, and it is commitment and consistency that carry you from where you are to where God wants you to be. That desire in your heart, that is evidence of destiny. God has already placed it in you, and it is yours for the taking when you match it with discipline and daily obedience. Failure is not your enemy. Quitting is. Every setback, every fall, every struggle is preparing you for breakthrough. Falling forward, staying faithful, and remaining courageous will develop the character God requires to fulfill your purpose. Your life is measured not by what you own, but by the impact you make, the lives you touch, and the legacy you leave. Putting God first is not a slogan. It is a daily system, a way of life that aligns every step with His plan. And the promise is clear. If you stick with God, no matter the storms, no matter the delays, no matter the obstacles, He will complete what He started in you. Your breakthrough, your purpose, your destiny is secured by your faithfulness. If this message has spoken to your heart, if it has challenged you to rise, to fight, and to stick with God no matter what, I want you to do 3 things right now. Subscribe to our channel, Dr. Miles Monroe Teachings, to receive more messages that will transform your life and strengthen your faith. Comment below. I will stick with God no matter what, and encourage someone else who needs this word today. Share this message with someone whose faith needs to be reminded that quitting is never an option. Remember, church, your destiny is too valuable to be abandoned. Stick with God, and He will finish what He started in you.